had a lot of fun doing our shopping. So now we're gonna head over to Rouse's Kitchen and we're gonna show you how to prepare some of those items that we made. We have our chef Kevin Hawkins here with us, and Leslie Fontenot, our dietitian. And remember, we told you we were gonna show you healthy snacking for the week on a budget. Here's our receipts. We stayed within our $20 budget. And so you're gonna see two different options that you can use for you and your family, just at home hanging out or at your summertime fun.
How's everyone doing today?
Great.
Good. Kevin, I'm so excited you're here.
I'm excited to work with you too.
Oh, and I'm smelling, we haven't cooked anything and I'm already smelling so much. I think I'm smelling the garlic and the fruits and the vegetables.
We got some good healthy pineapple and cantaloupe and some good things for us today, so.
Wonderful.
Awesome. I'm going to first talk about our pineapple. Looks like we got a really good one. There's a couple of rules of thumb when selecting a pineapple. There's different schools of thoughts as well. Mainly, what a lot of people will tell you is if you can pull the leaf just right off the top, then your pineapple's ripe. You'll also hear, if you can smell the bottom, you can smell the sugars. Typically, pineapples have a tendency for the sugar to kind of fall down to the bottom while it sits. Another thing that I really look for is kind of a uniform eye segments going all the way through the pineapple. Sometimes you'll see a bunch of little bitty ones on this side and it kind of grows into bigger, and that kind of tells me the pineapple just didn't grow properly or just isn't ripe. But this looks like a really good ripe pineapple, and I'm going to show you a couple of easy ways to cut it. Could be a little intimidating, but once you see it, it's pretty easy to go. So.
And that's what people tell me. They're intimidated. So I'm so glad you're going to show us.
They are. I'm going to show you two different cuts,
Okay.
a ring and then a cube. Or a dice, usually for party trays or something like that, or if you're cooking a ham at home and you want to put the rings on the ham, pretty easy done. So first thing we need to do is remove the top. You could either twist it right off, it'll pop right off, or what I like to do is just go ahead and cut about a 1/4 inch in, because this middle fibrous core is just usually kind of sour and not that good to eat. It is edible, but you'll be chewing for a while. So I'll just keep that off to the side. It makes a good little centerpiece if you're making a fruit tray, something like that.
And I'm going to tell you something else. If you just put it in the ground, I promise this is true. You just put it in the ground, put some soil around it, it grows, and it takes a year, you'll have a little pineapple. We can actually grow pineapple here in Louisiana. I promise, just stick it in the ground, put some dirt around it, forget about it. In a year and a half, you'll have a little pineapple.
I want to bet with my nephew that the pineapple would grow a year later. Almost cost me a Baymax. All right, so you just want to cut the bottom off as well, and you want to kind of keep that 1/4 inch separation too, because again, this root end is just not as delicious as the rest of the pineapple. Now, basically, you want to deal with the skin, so you just want to cut some off, and then we're going to use this line kind of as a guide for our next cut. You're going to turn it and place your knife where you're kind of cutting just the skin off. Don't worry about these little eyes, we'll deal with those after. And you want to shave as little of the actual pineapple as possible, leaving just the skin.
And you want to have a sharp knife, huh? I always
Sharp
make that
knives.
mistake. I'm thinking sharp knives are dangerous, but actually a dull knife can present more of a problem.
The dull knife is your worst enemy. I often get asked about what knife should I buy or what knife should I use, and usually, kind of like a plumber or a carpenter, as a chef, we have our own particular knives that we like, and they can cost anywhere from $200 to $1,000. But as a home cook, I usually say what feels good in your hand is what you need, and the most important part is a sharp blade. It's the dull ones that cut you. So now that we've got most of that skin off, you see we're left with a few little eyes, which you can easily take the side of your peeler if you want. You can kind of dig that little eye out. Or even as simple as taking a paring knife and cutting little slits in it. We'll pop those right off. They're just a little bit, rough in the palate, chewy, spongy. So we just take care of those. Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Now for the easy part, the intimidating part. Get rid of our skin here.
We were talking when we were shopping, we were talking about how sometimes the fresh items are a little more expensive, and people have to do the best they can. Sometimes cheaper is more affordable. You can use canned pineapple also.
You can.
Yeah, it's...
A lot of your canned vegetables and fruits have the same nutrients that fresh do.
Exactly.
So, the key to that too is, like I said, you want to use as much of the product as you can because you've spent a lot of money on it. Now the two different ways to cut it, I think I'll show you. The harder of the two is the rings, or I say the harder, it's just more time consuming. Flip it on its side, cut you about your inch ring that you want, and then you're left with this middle section that can easily just take a paring knife. I like to put my thumb up towards the end so that I know it's only going to go so far in, and then you just kind of cut a round circle. You could do this with a cookie cutter as well if you have one at home, and that takes your core right out and you have a nice delicious ring.
I love it.
What I find even easier though, and less time consuming, is just quarter your pineapple. Straight down again. Then you're left with that fibrous root kind of exposed on this side. Simply cut right down the side and it's completely removed. You can flip it over and you can cut nice little chunks and you have a completely edible slice. You can even cut this in half and then you have a nice even smaller chunk or dice depending on your recipe. Makes great for a fruit tray.
Wonderful. And you know, I was thinking about what you said, using as much of the fruit as we can. I was thinking about something that's real popular right now is fruit infused waters. You can buy them on the shelf, but has anybody ever infused their own? I've been experimenting at home. My son and I have been experimenting, and you can use these little parts. Like you said, I mean, it's a little straw, it's a little tough, so you'll have to use a lot of dental floss after you try to eat this. It's too fibery. But this can soak in some in your pitcher of water. Soak it for 4 to 6 hours, then you can remove this and your water will be fruit infused without any added table sugar, without any added artificial sweeteners. So you can infuse your waters with fruit.
I like a good combination of cucumber and strawberry infused water. I do that pretty often.
That's a wonderful idea. I was at the grocery store and I saw that there was some basil leaves. They were infusing the water with basil leaves, and we have that here. Yeah,
that's delicious.
Or mint leaves.
Mint would be great.
Yeah.
So another kind of intimidating fruit that is a delicious fruit would be a mango. It's always when I get new people in the kitchen, it's the least favorite item that they like to cut. But once they're shown how, it kind of opens up the world. You know, it naturally has a top and a bottom. You know, you just leave it on the board, it'll find that. And which is basically the flatter of the two sides. Well, that seed in the middle, basically what you want to do to cut it is just roll it to where it's standing up on its side, and you're just going to cut both lobes off. Which these cheeks have all the good stuff. And then you can even take your paring knife and kind of cut around the side, which the actual seed inside won't let you cut further into it. It's pretty hard. As you can see, I kind of shaved some there, but that's what we're looking for. And then an easy way to slice or dice them, just take it in your hand and very carefully run your knife in long slits. And then just take a spoon. Simply dig out the flesh. You can see you'll be left with nice little slices of mango.
Wow.
Which most applications you would actually want to
Wonderful.
dice this. So what you can do is kind of same theory. Go long ways or short ways, and then long ways, kind of like a crosshatch.
Mm-hmm. You know who showed me how to do this? My husband, Bill Fontenot. And I thought I was the fancy one with the dietetics degree. Long ago when we got married, he wooed me and impressed me. He could cut a mango, and that's how he showed me.
Well, then you just put it up like that, which is kind of a neat little decorative piece too, if you wanted to use it. But then from there, you just shave your little dices off with your knife, and you're left with diced mango. And this could be done in any size. You know, if you wanted larger dice than this, you could easily just make your crosshatches bigger.
I know mangoes are popular right now in salsas.
Very much so.
And we're not going to make salsa today. We're doing hummus and fruit kebabs, but a lot of salsas are using mango with the tomato.
It goes great with mango and onion, like over grilled fish, another healthy option, and it's fantastic that way. So
Wonderful.
that's one thing we could do.
So we have a question. Do you leave the skin on because it's easier to cut, or is the skin edible for, can you eat the skin, or did you just leave it on the skin to cut because it makes it easier?
It is edible, but it's not very tasty and kind
Yeah.
of bitter. And
Yeah, we don't recommend eating the skin. We recommend eating the skins on fruits and vegetables that are considered edible. Mango's kind of considered an inedible skin. Although I do have a friend of mine who eats, and we're going to talk about kiwi. She eats the skin on kiwi, but basically that's an inedible skin. I think maybe she didn't realize it was inedible, but yeah. The edible skins would be like the skins on peppers, and we're going to talk about peppers and grapes.
it really doesn't hold a whole lot of nutritional value for the skin on these particular ones,
But you can give it to your chickens.
You
If
could.
you have chickens, or if you have a bird at home, or if you have a squirrel at home, you can feed it to those
or
animals.
if you compost at home.
If you compost.
It does help you with that dice method to keep the skin so that you can actually work without cutting your hand open with a knife in your hand. And then kiwi, great fruit. I love eat it all the time. For men, it's great for their prostate health and other things.
It's a wonderful source of potassium, of fiber, and it's available year long. And it's relatively affordable.
And simply at home, I really just cut it in half and use a spoon to dig it right out.
Exactly. People lament to me that, man, it took so much time to peel that kiwi, and I'm like, you don't have to peel it. When you're packing your kids a little snack maybe or lunch, pack the kiwi whole, put a plastic knife in there and put a spoon, and yeah, you can just eat the flesh. You can scoop the flesh out with the spoon and eat it that way. I mean,
It's like fruit in a cup.
it's like fruit in a cup. Yeah.
All right, now the ever famous melon. For these, picking a good one, I just really look for a consistent color all the way around, and I make sure that there's no squishy parts onto it or bruising. I've seen the knocking and everything in between, but for me, it's really just about a consistent color. If one side's too green or too brown, then I know it's either overripe on one side or it's been stored improperly. So it's really about firmness and color. So
And I always like to, and maybe this is just an old Cajun thing, I like to leave it on my counter for a couple days and just let it, the sugars kind of, I don't know, it just seems to soften.
Repopulate.
And, yeah.
So I usually do that as well with mine, especially honeydew, because to me there's nothing like a good piece of sweet honeydew melon. But the same kind of a theory for the mango is going to apply. You can have this diced and ready to go really easy. What we do is we're just going to cut it down the middle, and obviously we have our seeds. And basically, I just take the spoon and try to cut out as much of the seeds without losing fruit as possible. If you go digging in there too much, you could cost yourself some delicious fruit.
We were talking, when we were shopping, we were talking about how oftentimes the fruits and vegetables that we eat as adults often are the ones that our parents prepared. And someone was talking about having never eaten kale or Swiss chard. I remember when I was in college, I had a friend who had never eaten cauliflower because her mom didn't like cauliflower and nobody cooked cauliflower. So I think it's important to expose children to a wide range of fruits and vegetables, and maybe even exposing that little kid in us to fruits and vegetables.
Before I started cooking professionally, kale was just that thing on the plate that was a garnish. No value to me, but honestly, it works just like spinach, sautéed lightly with some garlic and white wine or butter, and it's a great side item. It juices well. Some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So, cantaloupe, easiest thing. You just divide this into 4 sections. And then here's kind of the tricky part. If you've ended up with a wide section and you don't want slices or chunks that big, you can just simply take your knife and kind of run that halfway without cutting all the way through the rind. And then you just cut down like this, which will allow you to kind of flatten this cantaloupe out, which then you can just take your knife, run it right along the base like you're filleting a fish, and there you go. Diced cantaloupe with a little
Wow.
mess, and you just repeat.
Chef, what do you think about organic? I have my thoughts.
Well, to me, there's nothing more organic than growing it in your backyard. I feel like with the labeling, the lack of labeling restrictions and things like that, I prefer to know where my food is coming from. So local, I always prefer over organic.
And I know the labeling is getting better. You know, it was just 10 years ago that there was no rules for organic. I mean, but now we have more rules, and the USDA has their own organic sticker now. So organic generally means free of pesticides, free of certain fertilizers. It still tends to be, if you're buying organic in the store, that it's a little more expensive. And again, we were talking while we were shopping how we all have a budget and we have to stick in our budget.
Agreed.
I usually say, if you're gonna buy organic and you're on a budget and you can't afford everything organic, fruits and vegetables are a nice place to start. Buying organic fruits and vegetables, particularly the ones where you're going to eat the skins. So I think, you know, if you have a choice of buying organic grapes or organic cantaloupe, I would probably buy the organic grapes because you'll be able to cut away most of the
Agreed.
skin. Yeah.
Agreed.
So that's a good rule of thumb.
We are what we eat, so it's kind of more important to start paying attention to that these days.
Exactly.
Especially with all the GMOs and everything else going into pesticides into our food.
Exactly. It can be overwhelming, though.
It can, very much so.
GMOs, gluten. I mean, it's like, whew, what's left to eat? Just a little bowl of water and some dry bread. I mean, so but I think taking it apart and taking one step at a time and working with your budget.
I do feel like if you, everybody's kind of, they go on these big diets, if they switch their entire diet to organic or entire eating habits, and that's a commendable thing, but that's often why people fail. I feel like once you start adding a little bit at a time, the good food takes over for the bad food. You feel better. And
I love that. And we actually say there's no good food in bad foods. All foods can fit into a healthy way of eating. And that can be a nice attitude to use with children also. Especially in this world today, we have a lot of issues with eating disorders, and in helping kids eat healthy, we really want them to feel good about their bodies, feel good about their food choices, and I agree with you, putting in foods rather than taking things out.
There you go.
I think we're all ready.
I think we are. We can make some
Oh, our
skewers there.
melon.
Oh,
We're
our
going to
melon.
cut up a melon, a watermelon. But yeah, we have our pineapple, our grapes, bell pepper. I call them bell pepper. What you call them?
Sweet peppers.
Sweet peppers.
Sweet peppers.
Okay, I think that's a St. Martinville thing, bell peppers. But they're called sweet peppers, and I'm sure most of us are familiar with the green sweet peppers. Most people have not tried the yellow, the orange, there's even red, and they all have a little different taste.
The red pepper and the orange peppers are probably my two favorites. A
Which
little
one's
bit sweeter.
they're sweeter?
They're a little bit sweeter. All right. So the ever famous watermelon.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, a lot of times I cheat and just buy the pre-sliced watermelon, especially Rouse's. It's such a good sweet melon. But again, varying schools of thoughts on picking the right watermelon, and I honestly look for just all around the same color. As you can see, this one's got a nice green all over to it. It's not a lot of yellow, and then basically we just go in long ways. Now I have the fortunate of a very long chef's knife, which you may not have at home. So just take it slow and start in half and kind of go down to your cutting board, and then flip it around and go back the other way. That'll allow you to cut it.
It's beautiful. Is that a seedless melon?
It looks like it.
It looks like it. You know, I love all the options we have with watermelons. It used to be, you got a melon and you ate it for a week. I mean, and you made room in the refrigerator for it. But now we have all these smaller ones.
We do.
And
then
personal watermelons. Personal.
the little baby ones, those are neat too.
Yes.
Now there's a couple of different trains of thought on watermelon too, but slicing it. But kind of a neat trick that I've learned is if you come in on the side here and you make a couple little cuts, you do the same. And then you crosshatch this.
This looks fancy. Wow.
And then as one last final step, I kind of come along the entire edge. You're essentially able to just dump out
Wow.
chunks of watermelon.
Wow. That's gonna go perfect for our kebabs. Yeah, I'm gonna get
Sometimes
started.
they stick.
Yeah, putting these kebabs together.
And there you go. A little simpler than breaking it down.
And I think that gets in the way for people eating fruits and vegetables, this preparation
Prep
step.
time. Mhm.
Yeah. So maybe parents can do it on the weekend, you know, on a Sunday afternoon.
Sundays are usually my prep for the weekday. Like I run
Excellent.
my kitchen at home like I run a kitchen for work. But
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because I think sometimes we think that, we think that healthy eating just happens, but it doesn't. It does
Takes
take a
work.
little oomph, energy, and preparation.
it sure does. It sure does.
Yeah.
But once you get the hang of it, that preparation gets easier. And then it's a kind of a snowball effect for me. The healthy eating promotes a better feeling, better quality, and so you just kind of want to at that point. And then with tricks like that, it sure makes it a little easier to do. So
And then when you see your kids eating it, wow, then
That's
you
the
feel
bonus.
really inspired to continue it. Yeah.
that's the bonus. Let's see if we
Yeah.
get it.
So do y'all think this might be something you would do at home? Cut up some fruit and make some kebabs?
And I'm gonna say
Yeah.
that's good watermelon.
So I'll get our kebabs going. The next item would be our hummus.
We'll work on the hummus. Hummus is a
Yes.
fantastic high protein snack. I've used it as sandwich spreads. We do it as party platters. I mean, with the growing popularity of hummus, it's pretty easy to talk people into eating.
And you know, hummus has kind of evolved, kind of like you were talking about the kale. Hummus used to be just garbanzo beans, and that's the kind we're going to fix today.
Correct.
But the hummus has evolved. You can use almost any bean. You were telling me of some.
I've used some black bean hummus,
Wow.
white bean hummus. It all works the same way. Delicious, and you know you're getting a kind of a change of pace on the hummus. We even can do things like you puree some avocado into your hummus, changes the flavor profile. Some roasted red peppers gives it a whole different thing. So you're not stuck eating that same traditional hummus, which can sometimes get boring if you're eating the same thing over and over.
And I think the only ingredient that trips people up sometimes is the tahini paste. Everything else is Cajun in the hummus.
Exactly, they're
the
fine with
garlic, the
everything.
beans, everything's safe. But then sometimes this trips people up. The sesame paste.
Sesame paste. Basically, I try to tell a lot of new people to it that it's peanut butter. It's just made from sesame seeds. They roast sesame seeds and kind of grind it down into a paste. And that's what gives it that nutty flavor to the hummus that everyone's used to. But I've even substituted peanut butter for people that are just not willing to try a random
Really?
thing. And you get kind of the same flavor and the same profile, but the tahini paste is really what makes it that traditional hummus flavor, along with the garlic and the lemon juice. So,
And you know, I'm thinking dietitian. For people who are allergic to nuts, this is a seed.
You're right.
So it's for people who have nut allergies. As long as you don't have any seed allergies, this is a
good alternative.
a good alternative. But I like the idea of, for people who are a little afraid of this, you're just using your peanut butter.
And even biscotti, if you have a nut allergy, I've seen that used, and it's an interesting little flavor to it as well. So
What you mean, biscotti?
the peanut butter alternative. It's a
Oh, the one made from cookies?
correct.
You would use that in hummus?
I've seen it used. Makes it a little sweet. It's pretty neat.
Ah.
The other thing too, I didn't really touch on, but with the summer coming up, grilled fruit. If nobody's ever thought to do that, pineapple and watermelon make excellent grilled fruit options. The natural sugars inside of both fruits just kind of caramelize on those grills, and it just makes a really neat snack. So
Would you just put your kebab of
you
your
could,
pineapple?
I would keep it strictly the pineapple and watermelon and kind of give it, but and even the mango would work if you diced it large enough. But honestly, I don't know what would happen if you threw some grapes on there. I've never really grilled some grapes, but that's what cooking's about, is trying new things.
Yeah.
So let me get this out of our way, and
Okay.
we'll make some hummus.
I was thinking about, snacking, and we were talking about snacking, and I want your thoughts on this too. I think sometimes the unstructuredness of the summertime, sometimes snacking can become part of that unstructured time, and sometimes it can lead to some overeating. So again, you and I were talking about putting some thought in planning into your eating to make healthy eating happen. If you know that you're the kind of person who, and I'm that kind of person, I get bored and I'm looking for something to eat. If your snacking is going to be kind of out of boredom, then put a little thought and planning into some lower calorie snacks, some things you can nibble on that are going to be a little lower in calorie. Snacking also, I think something important to remember is that when you snack in between meals, it's a wonderful opportunity to get the vitamins, minerals, and food groups that maybe you missed out at mealtime. So if you did a burger and fries for lunch, a nice snack choice would be to get some fruits and vegetables at snack time. So kind of thinking strategically, I guess, about your snacking. Thinking about what you're hungry for, how much energy you need at that time, and thinking about what vitamins and minerals and food groups you might need. So overall, your day can come out balanced.
One of the things we did kind of touch on is healthy eating sometimes seems expensive, and I'm actually with my father right now trying to teach him some of this. He needs to change his diet, but what we do in a commercial kitchen is we're planning 3 and 4 and 5 days out. If I buy a watermelon for a grilled watermelon on a plate, well then the next day that watermelon's going to get used for something else completely different, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of another reason I mentioned the hummus. If you make a big enough batch of hummus, you're not going to want to eat the same hummus 6 days, 7 days in a row. But if you decide on the third day to puree the roasted red peppers into it or something like that, you've got another flavor or a different thing that you can work with, and you didn't buy any or that many more ingredients. So really setting yourself a plan for the week is really going to save you money in the long run as well.
And you won't get discouraged.
And you won't.
Because I've been discouraged. And people, we get discouraged when we buy all this food and then it goes bad at the bottom of the refrigerator, and then we throw it out and we say, that's it, I'm not going to do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah, so maybe buying in smaller amounts, setting smaller goals, and thinking 3 days out.
Exactly. And you maybe start with 1 or 2 fruits. We've done a cantaloupe, a pineapple, a watermelon, but just grab a pineapple and a cantaloupe. The cantaloupe will last a good time. The pineapple usually does too, so that gives you baby steps into it, which will be great.
Exactly.
All right. So hummus, I'm sure we've all had it, or at least seen it. We might be afraid of it, but it's really simple. You're looking at lemon juice, garlic, salt, tahini, garbanzo beans, a little bit of hot sauce for flavor and spice. And I always like to add a little bit of olive oil either after when I'm serving it or even into the mix. It just kind of gives it a nice little flavor too. But that's just a basic hummus recipe. You can kind of, I look at recipes kind of as a roadmap. We know 2 or 3 different ways to get to Baton Rouge from here. So, you know, there's a couple of different ways to get to hummus. It's just what you feel like, you know, going off on a limb there. So what I've done so far is I drained the garbanzo beans, but you want to reserve some of that liquid. One thing you probably might have experienced that just nobody likes is a gritty hummus. So basically, if we don't have enough liquid from our lemon juice and our tahini and our garbanzo beans pureed, we're going to want to add a little bit to help puree it down to a smooth paste. And I always look at water as the anti-flavor ingredient. It just kind of balances out. So it makes sense to just keep a little bit of your reserved juice. I've also seen stocks used, a little bit of chicken stock or a little bit of vegetable stock instead of water, but you know, the sky's the limit there. So.
And when we were shopping, we had talked about the garbanzo beans, because they were canned, had a little more sodium.
They do.
So we had talked about throwing out the water at times.
Which if you need the low sodium, you definitely want to throw that out.
Or maybe not add as much. Or?
Correct. And when I say add, I mean we may add a tablespoon of this at most, not a whole lot. But again, if you're worried about that, water's fine.
Exactly. And a couple spoons, if it does end up being a little higher in sodium, again, thinking about the rest of my day, this is a small part of your day, the hummus that you're going to eat at snack time.
And it works great as like in a place of mayonnaise for a sandwich spread or on a pita sandwich or things like that. So you're not just having to stick vegetables in it and eat it all day. So that is a good point. All right, so basically we're going to do a small batch, which is 2 cans of the garbanzo beans.
And you're using a Ninja blender?
I'm using a Ninja blender.
Wow. I've used my regular blender at home. Just my.
A food processor works, or a regular blender works. And typically, something like this, a blender might work better. These guys are just neat with the 2 blades, and it just kind of goes a little faster. But it's not necessary to have. And then I did about 4 garlic cloves minced. Now you don't need to worry too much about mincing it all the way down, because it's going to be a pureed item, but it does help if you mince it at least a little bit or rough chop it. You don't want to just throw the whole garlic cloves in there. Our tahini paste.
I've thrown the whole garlic in. It gets
works.
stuck at the bottom, yeah, and you have big pieces at the bottom, so thank you for showing me that, chopping it before.
And I had pulled the tahini paste out earlier, but I do want to show you. It's very similar to peanut butter or any of those items, but when it comes, you're going to want to stir it. It has a tendency to settle, and you see these big chunks that kind of form on the bottom, and
that's just the oil separating from the solid.
Correct. There's no problem with that, but again, if you just scoop the liquid off, you're not really getting tahini, you're getting oil.
Okay.
And if you use the chunks, it's just harder to measure that way to be more accurate. But just to give it a good quick stir, it'll kind of reconstitute itself, no problem. And then you're left with.
And I usually recommend, you'll tell me if this is a no-no, I usually recommend, if you're not going to make, a can can last you a while if you're using it to make hummus. Keep it in the refrigerator.
Yes.
Because it will go rancid
It will.
if it's kept a long time on your shelf.
It is shelf stable, but again, it'll stay longer in the fridge. And
So then you'll have to take it out, let it come to room temperature to be able to do the stirring.
Correct. And then I have the juice of about 1.5 lemons, and basically, the only trick I can give you is roll your lemon on the counter a little bit. It'll make it a little easier to juice, but we just simply juice these. So I'm going to pour that in. And then I have about a tablespoon of salt, which I'm going to go ahead and add. Just a little bit of.
And if you're watching your salt, you just put less of the salt.
Cut that off. Sorry about that. Our timer. And then we're going to go ahead and shut this and let the processor do the work.
What is the name?
which you will have to scrape down your sides a few times. As you can see, it's pureeing most, but not all. And I can kind of see right now that we don't have a whole lot of liquid, so we're going to need to add some of our juice
reserve
back in, or even again, if you wanted to do regular water or stock. Should be enough. If not, we can always add more. Kind of put a little of the olive oil in now while it's running. Paste out of that.
And you were saying the consistency you want is not a grainy one necessarily. It's more of a.
I find most people like a smoother paste. At least I do too. But you know, if you like it chunky, again, we're just working on the roadmap. So
yes,
it's your choice.
I think some people get concerned maybe when they see us adding the olive oil, and you know, olive oil is a source of calories. It's a source of fat. It's a wonderful fat for our heart. It's monounsaturated. It's very heart healthy, and so is the sesame paste. It's a very heart healthy fat. It is a concentrated source of calories, so you can be as liberal or as conservative as you're adding.
A little bit of the hot sauce dashes now that it's kind of pureed, just for flavor. And we should end up with a nice smooth hummus.
Typically, hummus is often eaten with pita bread or pita chips. And that's a wonderful option. If you're looking to think strategically at snack time, you may want to pair your hummus with some vegetables. That'll help you again getting those vegetables you're missing at mealtime.
One thing like I mentioned earlier, which I'll show you, I like to do is for a party platter is kind of pipe it onto cucumbers.
Oh, you talked about that, yeah.
Makes it easy to snack on and.
Mm-hmm.
Just got your own homemade batch of hummus, which
And how long is this good for in the refrigerator?
usually about 9 days is my rule of thumb on hummus.
Okay.
Most things that you cook, you've got about a 7-day shelf life in
Okay.
your fridge.
Okay.
Hummus, I usually go about 9.
9 days.
I personally have not frozen it, but I do hear it freezes pretty well.
Hmm.
Alright.
Yeah, and dietitian in me always thinks food safety. If you bring it to a party and it stays out all day and you have leftovers, I would throw that away.
I would definitely
Yeah.
throw that away.
But if it's just taken out and it's in an air-conditioned room and it's out and you serve and you have leftovers, then put in that back in the refrigerator. But if it's out all day, I would toss it.
Now, just to make it look good, what we do, you can stripe your cucumber. This peeler would work for me. If you don't feel like actually taking the time to pipe it onto the cucumbers, which is rather time consuming, I'll usually cut them on a bias, which is basically just cutting them on an angle. Kind of gives you a wider chip.
I like it.
It just goes right in there.
Wow.
For your guests to just pop right off.
Wow. And we can probably put some of our other
Mhm,
vegetables too,
definitely.
right on the side.
It's kind of how
Wow.
I normally tend to serve it there.
Yeah.
And I was going to show an easy way to kind of cut a bell pepper too for this method, or just any method in general. What I like to do is I cut the top off. I'm about minimal waste when it comes to cooking. We spent some good money on these, so we want to use every part.
Mhm.
Top and bottom like that, and you see the stem just came kind of right off, and you're left with that. And then I just cut a side slit, and again, just kind of fillet the seed mixture out, which you're left with very minimal waste, and it's really just kind of contains all your seeds because you hate those getting all over your counter like that. And then from there, it's actually easier if you want to dice your bell pepper. You can cut this into little bitty long strips like this, and then you can turn those, and it's just an easy dice. Or as in this method, you can just cut those strips very long, and it gives it something that they can actually dig in there with. Don't forget the celery.
Yes. Well, fruits and vegetables don't have to be boring, huh?
They don't.
Wow.
Really don't.
And it doesn't always have to be with ranch dressing. No offense to ranch
No,
dressing. I
no.
like my ranch and carrots and we have carrots too. I forgot
There you
about
go.
that.
Another thing I like to do too is, if you
Big
don't
carrot.
want to take on the calories and such of olive oil, you don't have to. But again, too, to just kind of dress up your platter, you can put a little olive oil on the top there, and then garnish with olives, Kalamata olives, or paprika, or parsley, or anything on the above, and it makes a nice little
Chef, it looks wonderful.
party platter.
I know our audience is hungry. Oh. We have our hummus. Make room on the table. Wow.
Excellent. So I hope we've shown you a few little ways to get some healthy food into your life.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank
so
you.
nice when a dietitian and a chef, let's do like this.
It was a pleasure, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So that was some great things that you were able to show us and help us with today. So we appreciate you coming out and for our first show here and showing them some healthy snacks. So I just wanted to say thank you to our audience members for coming out here today. Special thanks to Kevin, our chef, Kevin Hawkins, and our dietitian, Leslie Fontenot. Also Rouse's Supermarket for partnering with us for today's show. So the tips that they shared with you today can be found on our Coalition's Facebook page. at Louisiana Healthy Communities Coalition Region 4. We also have some other health tips. And always remember that small healthy changes that you make over time equal big results. Thank you.